Hello there, I'm Azaria Tagaya and you're watching Nightline. The top stories. Malaysia calls for end to Palestinian oppression at historic ASEAN GCC summit. And Prime Minister proposes ASEAN GCC Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Good morning. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim urged the international community to be united in rejecting hypocrisy and the unfair treatment of Palestinians. The Prime Minister warned that the international community cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the atrocities that are befalling the Palestinians and set out several urgent needs and collective actions which he said must be taken immediately. The Prime Minister revealed Malaysia demands the United Nations Security Council, including the 5 countries with veto power, to play a more prominent role as peace brokers to end the conflict. Delivering his message at the first ASEAN Gulf Cooperation Council or GCC summit in Riyadh, Anwar said the basic reasons and cause of the conflict must be addressed, adding that human rights must be protected and international law must be adhered to without exception. He also stressed that Palestinians must be allowed to return to their homeland, to their homes and to their property. They must also be given the opportunity to live in peace and dignity in a sovereign country with international boundaries that are recognized as those of maps in 1967, with East Jerusalem as their capital. Anwar added that with time running out and facing a humanitarian crisis that could escalate into a territorial and global issue, Malaysia wants all countries to join forces in finding a permanent solution and not a temporary one. On the same stage, the Prime Minister also condemned Israel's indiscriminate bombing of Gaza, as well as the blocking of basic needs to those living in Gaza. He also expressed that Malaysia is both gravely alarmed and deeply saddened by the high number of civilian casualties due to the latest escalation of clashes in and around the Gaza Strip. Of immediate concern, Anwar said there is an urgent need to establish humanitarian corridors to deliver assistance to those in need, and expressed that Malaysia is ready to join the international efforts in delivering humanitarian aid and relief supplies. As such, the ASEAN GCC summit must play its role as the second stage for the countries involved to ensure that the Gulf region is more resilient, dynamic and transformative, especially in current issues plaguing them. An Israeli airstrike has hit an Orthodox Greek church in Gaza that was housing about 500 Palestinians who had fled their homes. It's unclear how many people have been killed or injured in the strike, but it is estimated that about 150 to 200 people are dead, and the number is expected to rise. Israel, however, has downplayed the attack, saying its fighter jets had hit a nearby command and control center that Hamas used to carry out attacks and had only damaged the church's wall. The incident has pushed the death toll in Gaza to nearly 4,200 people, while more than 14,000 others were left injured. The strike hitting the church follows Tuesday's airstrike on a church-affiliated hospital, killing some 500 people and wounding hundreds of others. Israel has denied any role in the strike on the Al Ahli Baptist Hospital, and an Israeli military spokesperson had referred to Al Jazeera live feed as evidence of a resistance rocket misfiring. Al Jazeera's digital investigation team, however, has debunked Israeli claims that a failed Hamas rocket had allegedly caused the tragic massacre. In a fact-check report, Al Jazeera says that investigation revealed that Israeli statements seem to have misinterpreted the evidence to build a story that one of the flashes recorded by several sources was a rocket misfire. In the meantime, the United Nations on Friday has called for an independent international investigation into the devastating blast at the hospital. Meanwhile, the UN's Humanitarian Office says it is in advanced talks with all parties in the conflict to ensure an aid operation into Gaza starts soon. This after Israel said it will not thwart deliveries of food, water or medicine from Egypt as long as they are limited to civilians in the south of Gaza and not commandeered by Hamas. Currently, more than 200 loaded trucks with some 3,000 tons of aid are ready to enter Gaza from Egypt, are at or near the Rafah crossing. However, UN Chief Antonio Guterres says restrictions on aid deliveries would first need to be clarified before the supplies go in under the supervision of the UN. The entire population of Gaza has been cut off from supplies of electricity, food, fuel and water for over a week under a complete siege ordered by the Zionist regime. Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Friday proposed an ASEAN Gulf Cooperation Council GCC Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement or CEPA to maximise the economic potentials of both regions. The Prime Minister said the challenges posed by the current geopolitical climate require the 10-member bloc and the Middle East to reimagine economic cooperation between them. Speaking at the inaugural ASEAN GCC summit in Riyadh, Anwar stressed that the council members need to transform ASEAN GCC relations to maximise the economic potentials of the combined regions. In this regard, he said Malaysia has proposed CEPA, an agreement that is crucial in advancing progressive, inclusive and sustainable growth, especially as the regions recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and face geopolitical uncertainties. On the summit, Anwar, who is also the finance minister, said it signifies that the relations between both regions are at the threshold of a new era of cooperation. He added the ASEAN GCC relations have grown by leaps and bounds since they first formalized relations in 1990. The nation's first energy-efficient vehicle, EEV, and electric vehicle, EV, manufacturing plant is set to be built in the Haikom Peguh Industrial Park in Melaka, with an investment value exceeding 100 million ringgit. Melaka Chief Minister Datuk Seri Abdul Rauf Yusof said the plant, which would be developed by EP Manufacturing Berhad EPMB, is expected to produce up to 30,000 EEVs and EVs annually in the first phase after the completion of the plant at the end of next year.
Ini adalah merupakan satu kejayaan baru di negeri Melaka dan kerajaan negeri Melaka akan seterusnya memberikan sokongan dan dukungan kepada pelabur-pelabur yang ingin membuka kilang dan pelaburannya di Melaka, akan memberikan segala kemudahan yang terbaik untuk melancarkan pelaburan mereka di negeri Melaka ini.
He said this after inaugurating the groundbreaking ceremony of the EPMB's new vehicle plant development, which was also attended by EPMB Group Chief Executive Officer Ahmad Razlan Muhammad. Rauf added around 1,000 new job opportunities in the automotive sector would be created for the people of Melaka, particularly those residing in the Peguh area, thus boosting the state's economic growth while helping to reduce carbon dioxide emissions in the future. The Melaka CM also stressed that the effort is in line with the state government's direction to always be open to attract more new investments to Melaka through investor-friendly and business-friendly policies. Rauf also suggested to EPMB to collaborate with 23 technical and vocational education and training TVET institutions in the state to produce skilled and semi-skilled labour for the plant's workforce needs. Lynas Rare Earth plans to shut all operations in Malaysia except for a mixed rare earth carbonate processing plant from mid-November. Following the announcement, shares of the Australian rare earth materials producer fell as much as 2.7% to $6.24, the lowest since May 3rd. During the shutdown, key personnel from the Malaysian cracking and leaching plant will be deployed to assist with the startup process in Kalgoorlie, Australia. In the meantime, Lynas will implement an upgrade to its downstream operations in Malaysia to increase production of neodymium praseodymium to about 10,500 tonnes per annum. This upgrade will be essential if its Malaysian operating licence is updated to allow the import and processing of lanthanide concentrate from January next year. The announcement came after the government raised concerns about the radiation levels from cracking and leaching, with Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim warning of a policy to ban exports of rare earth raw materials.
This week on Money Matters, unlocking the potential of the ringgit in recalibrating the economy, enhancing confidence in the stock market in the face of daunting developments, and building a ringgit-centric economy that stands tall on its own strength. Join us with Tan Sri Abdul Wahid Omar, Chairman of Bursa Malaysia, this Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3 and live HD stream on Tonton.
PAS has quashed rumours that the party would field former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad as its candidate for the Kemaman parliamentary by-election on December 2nd. Party President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang described claims that the party was supposedly planning on having the former Prime Minister back in the Dewan Rakyat through the by-election as unreasonable. Mahathir was earlier seen making his maiden appearance at the party's 69th Muktamar or General Assembly at the Ideal Convention Centre in Shah Alam on Friday, following his show of support for the party and his appointment as advisor to Perikatan Nasional's 4 state governments, otherwise known as SG4. While answering a question from the media during the press conference that followed, Abdul Hadi alluded that PAS would unlikely field Mahathir to represent the party during the Kemaman parliamentary by-election.
Tidak, dan tidak. Tak pernah sabar lah. Kalau nak timbul tak pernah sabar lah.
The Kemaman by-election is being held after the Terengganu Election Court nullified the victory of PAS candidate Che Alias Hamid following allegations that bribery had occurred with the intention to influence voters during the 15th general election, which also saw Mahathir failing to defend the Langkawi parliamentary seat in a 5-cornered clash. In the meantime, in his opening speech at the Assembly, the Marang MP acknowledged that the party's election postmortems showed it had not only failed to gain support among non-Muslims, but also in wooing Malays who are disinterested in politics. Now, the death of a 2-year-old infant at an unlicensed childcare centre last week has sparked outrage. The tragedy once again turned the spotlight on unlicensed childcare centres, prompting calls for the government to take action. FMT's Danish Rajareza and Puja Mohanathasan have the report.
The grief of losing their newborn baby. These pictures captured the heartache Faizul Ali Adam and his wife Maisara Rosli will bear for the rest of their lives. It was just 2 months ago that the couple welcomed their daughter, Kaseh Alia Faizul, into the world. However, just weeks later, their lives were changed forever by a phone call from Kaseh's nursery.
Bila kita dapat panggilan tu, saya harap macam bukannya serius lah, maksudnya baru lagi macam dia jumpa tu masih baru lagi lah, maksud boleh diselamatkan lah kan. Bila saya sampai tu macam terkejut lah, macam tak sangka macam dia dah tak ada kan.
Kaseh died under the care of a nursery in Kota Damansara last week. While investigations are ongoing, Deputy Women, Family and Community Development Minister Aiman Atira Sabu has revealed that the nursery is unregistered with the Social Welfare Department. The tragic incident has sparked calls for action to be taken against unregistered childcare centres. Tarmizi Anwar of Consumer Choice Centre says only registered nurseries should be allowed to operate. And such nurseries must be run by qualified and trained people in the interests of a child's safety. And he's not alone.
Unlicensed daycare shouldn't be allowed because there is no guarantee in case of any negligent or unforeseen incident might occur to the children.
When a daycare is licensed, we as a parents know at least there are certain rules and regulations followed by the daycare because they are registered and safe.
But both Siti and Ati say parents also have to do their own due diligence. And there are a lot of unregistered nurseries around. For context, in August 2022, it was reported there were 1,227 registered nurseries nationwide and 677 unregistered ones. And the 677 nurseries were only the unregistered centres identified by the Welfare Department. So what can we do about unregistered nurseries? Tarmizi says the government should set a whitelisting period to encourage illegal nurseries to register and obtain licenses. The whitelisted nurseries will then have to comply with guidelines under Childcare Centre Act 1984. Danish Rajareza and Puja Mohanadasan, FMT for Nightline.
British PM Rishi Sunak suffers 2 historic by-election defeats. News from the Foreign Front when we return. foreign news. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's governing Conservatives suffered two crushing defeats in previously safe parliamentary seats on Friday, raising doubts about his party's ability to win the general election expected next year. The main opposition Labour Party won the seat of Mid-Bedfordshire, overturning a majority of almost 25,000, making it the biggest deficit the party has overcome in a by-election since 1945. It also overturned a huge majority in another former Conservative stronghold, Tamworth, a largely rural constituency in central England, with the second largest swing between the two parties since World War II. The double defeat showed a dramatic slump in support for the Conservatives, who have won the last four national elections, and is only the third time that a British Prime Minister has lost two by-elections on the same day since 1991. Canada has withdrawn 41 diplomats from India amid a dispute over the murder of a Sikh separatist leader. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said the government made the decision to recall its diplomats after the Indian government said it would revoke their diplomatic immunity. This move, she said, was unreasonable and unprecedented and clearly violated the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Ottawa's withdrawal of its diplomats leaves Canada with 21 representatives in India. Canada and India have been at loggerheads since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau last month accused the Indian intelligence services of involvement in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Parts of eastern Scotland experienced severe flooding on Friday after storm Babette brought exceptional rainfall and winds of more than 112 kilometers per hour, leaving thousands of homes without power. Britain's national weather forecaster, the Met Office, issued its first red warning for rain since February 2020 and said that the exceptional rainfall was expected to cause extensive flooding, road closures, loss of power and other essential services. It also warned communities could be completely cut off for several days. Earlier on Thursday, officials have confirmed that a falling tree hit a van near Forfar in Angus, killing a 56-year-old driver, while another dead victim, a woman who was swept into a swollen river, was recovered in the evening. Back with sports now. Tennis and the 2023 Japan Open. Marcos Giron will face fellow American Ben Shelton in the last four, following a comfortable quarter-final victory over Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime. 30-year-old Giron enjoyed a convincing start, taking the first set 6-1. Auger-Aliassime showed more determination in the second set, but failed to stop Giron from claiming a 6-4 win and a spot in the semi-final. Giron won their only previous meeting earlier in the year at the Delray Beach Open in Florida in February. We're going for a short break. When we come back, 3 PAS leaders killed in car crash. Thanks for staying with us on Nightline. 3 Kedah PAS women's wing leaders were killed in a car crash on the North-South Expressway while on their way home to Sungai Petani after attending the party's Muktamar in Shah Alam on Friday morning. PAS Deputy President Datuk Sri Tuan Ibrahim Tuan Man said the deceased were from the party's Sungai Petani Division Women's Wing. The victims were identified as the Sungai Petani Division Women's Wing Chief, 61-year-old Taibah Sulaiman, Youth Chief, 23-year-old Fatiha Nabila, and Deputy Secretary General, 27-year-old Najihah Amzi. Mualim District Police Chief Superintendent Muhammad Hasni Muhammad Nasir said that all the victims were travelling in a Toyota Fortuner and were involved in the accident with 5 other vehicles. He said the 2:30 p.m. accident also involved a Mitsubishi Triton, a Toyota Altis, a Yamaha motorcycle, a Honda EX5 motorcycle and a Perodua Myvi at the kilometre 390 of the North-South Expressway near Berang, Perak. 2 of them died at the scene of the accident, while the third died on the way to the Slim River Hospital. 3 other people were injured and were being treated at the same hospital. Police seized 208 kilograms of shabu valued at 7 million ringgit in a warehouse in Shah Alam, Selangor. Kuala Lumpur Police Chief Dato' Alauddin Abdul Majid said that 2 men were arrested on suspicion of assisting in hiding the drugs in modified iron rods. In a press conference on Friday, Alauddin said, acting on a tip-off, a team from the Kuala Lumpur and Selangor Narcotics Criminal Investigation Department conducted a raid in Taman Sri Muda Shah Alam on Thursday night. Initial investigations revealed that both suspects were acting as middlemen and were paid 50,000 ringgit each to assist in hiding the drugs.
So samaran dia, aluminium ni adalah kaki meja, dada ni dimasukkan ke dalam dan kemudian dipatrikan dengan menggunakan alat-alat patri yang ada di sebelah kiri saya ya.
During the raid, police also seized over 10,000 ringgit in cash, jewellery, a car and materials for modifying iron used to conceal the drugs. Both suspects are currently remanded for 7 days until next Thursday to assist in the investigation under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952. Over in Pulau Pinang, a lorry driver was charged at the Butterworth Sessions Court on Friday with 2 counts of raping his stepdaughter in 2018 and 2019. The 29-year-old claimed trial when the charges were read to him before Judge Zulhazmi Abdullah. On the first count, he is alleged to have raped his stepdaughter, who was 10 years old at the time, in a house at Kampung Bagan Buaya, Cangkat, Nibong Tebal in December 2018. On the subsequent count, he is alleged to have raped his stepdaughter, who was 11 years old at the time, at the same place in 2019. He was charged under Section 376, subsection 3 of the Penal Code, which carries between 8 years and 30 years imprisonment and no less than 10 strokes of the rotan upon conviction. Zul Hazmi allowed bail at 20,000 ringgit with one shorty for both charges and fixed for mention on November 21st. In Putrajaya, a company director has been arrested for allegedly giving a 17,000 ringgit bribe to a ministry official to expedite payment of subsidy claims for chicken and eggs worth about 600 million ringgit. Also arrested was a member of his staff who is in his 30s. It is learnt that the director, who is also the president of an association, was arrested at around 6:30 p.m. on Thursday after he was summoned to give his statement at the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC headquarters in Putrajaya. Sources said that since May, subsidy payments amounting to 600 million ringgit had been paid, involving 300-odd poultry breeders and egg producers nationwide. Magistrate Irza Zulaika Rohanuddin allowed for the suspect to be remanded for 3 days until Sunday. The second suspect was released on bail. MACC Senior Director of Investigation, Datuk Sri Hishamuddin Hashim, confirmed the arrest. A total of 136 illegal immigrants occupying a luxury condominium on Jalan Munshi Abdullah, including the penthouse unit, were detained in an operation held early on Friday morning. Immigration Director General Datuk Ruslin Jusso said the raid was carried out following intelligence and complaints from members of the public who claimed that there were too many foreigners in the area, causing concern. Ruslin said those detained comprise of 130 men and 6 women from Bangladesh, Indonesia, India, Nepal, Pakistan and Thailand, aged 20 to 70, who committed various offences, including overstaying and not possessing travel documents. Initial investigation found that the foreigners were renting in 2 condominium blocks with 3 or 4 bedroom units, housing at least 8 individuals. Some were found staying in the penthouse, which could indicate a good source of income. Ruslin added the department would conduct an investigation and summon the homeowners and condominium management to determine whether the houses were rented by the employers or the foreigners themselves. It is understood that most of the foreigners were renting rooms in the condominium with rental rates between 500 ringgit and 800 ringgit per month. Those detained were taken to the immigration depot in Semenye, Selangor for further investigation under the Immigration Act, Passports Act and immigration regulations. Nightline draws to a close this time around. Before we leave, let's take a look as Sydney Opera House celebrates its 50th birthday with spectacular fireworks and a laser show. With that, I'm Azaria Tagaya. Thank you for watching and have a great weekend.